Partners of sleep talkers or sleepwalkers, what gems have you to share? My wife will tell me the next day when I do this. Her favorite story to tell is that she woke up in the middle of the night to find me slowly walking out of our bedroom. Wife, are you okay? What are you doing? Me, there's somebody downstairs in the kitchen, unrolling the tin foil. Wife, oh okay. What's your plan? Me, I'm going to stop them. Wife, shall we get a bit more sleep then both go down together? Me, okay. And I went back to bed. Subsequent investigations found a small plastic bag on the floor, near my head, being rustled by the movement of the curtain, the window being open. It's really interesting how sometimes subtleties in the environment like this can make their way into our dreams. My boyfriend woke me up the other day by gently putting his fingers in my mouth, and I kept moving my head out of the way until eventually I was like, "Can you stop that?" He then sounded genuinely upset and asked why I woke him up as he was having a really nice dream about feeding a deer. Brilliant. Oh my heck, I had something similar happen. I'd gotten up to use the bathroom and our soap is lemon scented. When I had just gotten back to sleep, I woke up to my husband trying to eat my fingers. He said he was dreaming of eating lemon heads. Not my current partner, but my ex-boyfriend sometimes talks in his sleep, and the funniest story was this one time I was still up reading a book and I hadn't noticed that he was already asleep next to me. Suddenly he bursts out, "Will you just give me the freaking yogurt already?" Shannon in a flawless British accent, and scares the crap out of me. We're both German and none of our first languages include English. We didn't know a Shannon. He's lactose intolerant. Sounds like he'd been watching the Osbournes if I had to guess. My girl woke up one night and said, "Did you find your rocks?" And I asked her what she was talking about and she said, "I don't know. I'm just trying to make conversation," and promptly went back to sleep. She has no recollection of this. Well, you obviously weren't being talkative enough. Sigh. My boyfriend either recites postcodes, delivery driver, or calls the dog in his sleep. So either he is mad no one is responding to his postcode nonsense, or I get a flying 30 kilograms dog to my body. I'd like to imagine that he wakes up and calls the dog just to frick with you. My aunt likes to tell the story about her and my cousin sharing a hotel room one time. My aunt woke up having to pee and found my cousin sitting up in bed with her arms folded across her abdomen, kind of rocking back and forth and giggling quietly. When my aunt asked her what she was doing, my cousin said, "I'm holding a baby and it has an adult smile." I found this story deeply unsettling. Get the holy water. Once my ex said horse, that's all, just horse, but with a sense of urgency. The same ex told me I once sat straight up in bed and mumbled, "Jesus, Grandma, you scared the crap out of me." I had been dreaming that I was in bed at night and my grandma, still alive at the time, wandered into the room and stood at the end of the bed with a blank stare. The grandma thing is creepy AF. Fantastic sleep songs with lyrics which are utterly bizarre. My two absolute favorites have been 1. Oh whoa whoa, it's a corner cat. 2. Obey my rules, and you'll always be a country cowboy, repeated about 5 times and finished with a "yeah." Corner cat is amazing. That might make it into a song of mine. So this one time while my SO was sleeping, she randomly reaches over and starts to pet my leg softly. When I ask her what she's doing, she looks at me like I'm stupid and says, "What does it look like?" "I'm petting this fluffy baby penguin." Then pauses for a second, pats my leg again and blurts out, "Wait, this isn't a penguin." I have never laughed so hard over someone talking in their sleep. I want to steal all the wives and girlfriends on this thread because they are too dang cute for words. My wife started screaming one night that she was lost in the local grocery store, and that no matter where she went she couldn't find her way out. I asked her, has she tried checking out at the cash registers? She then looked at me and said in her most sincere voice, "That's why you are the smartest person I know," and she rolled over and fell back asleep. One night, my boyfriend woke me up in the middle of the night, tapping me on my shoulder. He put his finger on his mouth, whispered "shush" to me, then pointed at the door and told me I can hear something. Don't move. Predictably, I nearly crapped my pants. All the worst possible scenarios crossed my mind, and the moment of silence after he shushed me felt like hours. Then, He started waving his hands and talking about Tetris, the twirlies, IDK, and making sure we don't align. And that's how I learned my boyfriend talks in his sleep. I was watching TV once when my sister came out of her room and shoved her pillow in a kitchen drawer. After that she crossed the living room, opened the front door and said they're almost here. She closed the door and went back to her room. It was my first experience with sleepwalking and scared the complete crap out of me. As far as I am aware, that is the only incident she has ever had. Heck yes. Please take a seat. My wife was an avid sleep talker for a long time and her midnight announcements range from simple single words to elaborate speeches. The ones that really stand out to me are waking up in the middle of the night to her suddenly sitting violently up in bed, throwing back the covers, and screaming, "Tarantula, that will make you very awake, very quickly," whispering my name repeatedly, which woke me up so she could share in a hushed, cautious voice, "There is an alligator in here." When I expressed my concern, playing along, she told me, still whispering, that it's okay, it has been here before. But my all-time favorite was when, from her perspective as she later explained, she was dreaming that I was playfully sneaking up on her and she saw me and was calling me on it. From my perspective, my wife sat up in the middle of the night, starting into the darkest corner of the room and said repeatedly in a soft sing-song voice, "I see you." My flipping blood froze. TLDR, my wife is terrifying. Okay, the last one is terrifying. Years ago, my wife was mumbling in her sleep and seemed a bit upset. I wanted to comfort her without waking her up too much, so I said, "Honey, you're fine. Do you know where you are?" She slugged me in the arm and said, "I'm in place where punch buggers are seen first." She then rolled over and muttered to herself, "Chugga chugga chugga buggy," and went back to sleep. She didn't remember a thing the next morning. Anyone that says chugga 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 buggy is a keeper. Stay awesome, dudes. My grandfather was a hard sleep talker. My grandmother has a funny story. One day my grandfather while sleeping was saying, "Do I punch this butthole?" My grandmother replayed, "Yeah, punch him." Then my grandfather in his sleep punched her. I'm the sleep talker here. Got this from my wife the next morning. Me. Sits bolt upright, they're coming. Everything's ready. Wife. Sleepy, huh? Me. They're coming. Everything's ready. Wife. They're coming. Me. Hum. Wife. But everything's ready. Me. Yes. Wife. Sounds like we're okay then. Me. Comically flops back down and instantly goes back to sleep. My mom sleepwalks sometimes. When she was in the middle of her residency, she came into my room in the middle of the night and sharply asked, "Did you give patient her dose of medication, like I asked you to 15 minutes ago?" I groggily replied, "Ooh, wah?" She just huffed and said, "Well, I guess that answers my question," before turning around and leaving, without closing the door, of course. She didn't remember a thing about it the next morning. What is it with moms never closing bedroom doors? It transcends age, race, location and all other demographics imaginable. If you're a mom, bedroom doors do not close. It is the way. To the moms reading this, be the change. Napping with the boyfriend. A loud noise wakes me, but he's still out. Me. What was that? Him. Either a tree or a magic eraser. Mister. Clean, hiding in your closet looking real nervous after that. I've been told that, as a child, my father would regularly sleepwalk into his dad's bedroom and urinate in his work shoes. He got up, went into the kitchen and ate one bite of a mini pecan pie, no fork, just a straight bite, then apparently remembered he hates pecan pie and left it stacked neatly on the little box. Another time he sat up and stared straight ahead at the wall, didn't respond to me asking what was wrong. He stood up, walked into the wall, then stood there like he was contemplating the barrier. He just backed up exactly as he came, sat down and swung back into bed like nothing happened. That was creepy. I have had funnier experiences than this one, but cannot remember exactly what was said. Most recently, though, my boyfriend scoots over to meet a big spoon, little spoon, and I snuggle in, thinking that's all it was. Then he gets real close to my ear and whispers, "Just so you know, there's something in the closet, like a cartoon turtle." I did my best not to bust out laughing and just said, "Okay honey," when he woke up. He had no memory of it whatsoever, of course. When I was a child about 5 years old, I was sleeping in my parents' bed for some reason. Probably a storm. Mum was awake. Dad and I were asleep. Suddenly my father and I have this cross-sleep conversation while my mom lays between us. Quietly freaked out. "Dad, you better not take my toys," I mutter angrily. "Okay, I won't," my father responds. "Don't even touch them." Okay, not particularly scintillating conversation, but notable for the fact that we're both asleep and still responding to each other. It was like making Alexa and Siri talk to each other, lol. My boyfriend had his tonsils removed a while back, so he was on some pain reducing drugs that kept him sedated and, in his words, made him a freaking dumbass. He had a conversation in his sleep with me about how I 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 with me about how I. Also, he said not to trust Irish people because they were honorary leprechauns. I died laughing at the honorary leprechauns part. Not my partner, but my younger brother and I used to share a room and used bunk beds. One night I heard him mumble, "I don't create the weather, I just predict it." Well done, Jackie. My brother did that in the middle of the night. He would get up, go into the living room, say some nonsense crap to our parents and go back to bed. It was actually pretty creepy the first times, because he was like, "They are in the walls. They are." I do this too. But I usually wake up as the sentence is coming out of my mouth and realize the convo I'm replying to wasn't real. Then I yell "never mind" and run away in shame. My mom used to wake me up for school because I'd sleep through my alarms. She has a bunch of stories about weird crap I've said to her right before waking. "He's not here. Check down the street. Just put it on the roof and it'll blow away." My mom has to do this with my younger brother, and most recently he sat up while still asleep, started moving his arms really quickly as though running, and said, "I am the fastest man alive, Barry Allen." My mum jumped my dad because in her dream he was a thief that stole an old lady out of the hospital, so she had to catch him. Not my partner, but my younger brother says the most ridiculous stuff. One time he said, "Get off my treasure," in a pirate voice. Another time he said, "Get your hands off my fish." Guess he doesn't like sharing. My girlfriend was sleepwalking one night. Her, "Can we get that done this week?" Me. Huh. Her, "Can we get that done this week?" Me. "Sorry?" Her, "Can we get that done this week please?" Me. "Okay." Her, "Thanks." My husband once sat bolt upright on bed and announced, "You're not working hard enough. I have to fire you," and went back to sleep. Not a partner, but 1 o'clock in the morning I got a phone call from my friend in the next street. My 6-year-old daughter had just knocked on her door and then walked in mumbling about not being able to do her sums. I raced up there and walked home with her, put her back to bed, and she didn't wake up or remember a thing the next day. By the next night our house was like Fort Knox. He started shouting that he couldn't feel his left arm. I pointed out he was pinching his pillow, not his arm. He then freaked out that he had lost his arm. I pointed out his arm was under his pillow. He said okay and started snoring. It took me another hour to get back to sleep. He didn't wake up at all. My mom tells a story about a time she fell asleep with her arm above her head. It lost circulation and dropped onto her chest, but she had no feeling in it since it fell asleep. When it flopped on her chest, she woke up and tried to throw her asleep arm, screaming that a dead hand had fallen on her. My GF does a bit of sleep talking. I mentioned a sheep character from Animal Crossing. Dumb. And she sounded like she was about to cry, saying he doesn't have hands. Which, to be fair, he doesn't. I hope Dom is a name, not some alternate version of Animal Crossing. One time, my ex was asleep and started to snore progressively loud. He startled himself half awake, and he says out loud to himself, "Shut up, I'm sleeping." Oh, I snorted my drink through my nose. Reminds me of the time my dog woke himself up with his own fart. My boyfriend sat bolt upright in bed in the middle of the night. He doesn't usually sleep talk. Him, "There's a thing over there." Me, absolutely crapping myself. "What thing?" Him, "Upgrade." Me, relieved but very confused. What kind of upgrade? Him. Brag. Me. Oh, a bag upgrade, okay. Carry more stuff. Him. Yee. He then flopped down and began snoring, letting me slowly recover from the massive spike in heart rate. Your boyfriend sitting up in a dark room and looking at the corner saying there's a thing over there is not fun. Turns out he'd just been playing 2 games. Meanwhile, there really was a thing over there who was very relieved you didn't investigate. Oh man, not my partner but my brother. I was watching The Exorcist with my dad and my brother, and at the beginning of the movie, some archaeologists find a little statue that releases the devil or something. Anyway, we finish the movie, and my brother falls asleep on the other couch, so my dad and I just watch another movie. The second that movie ended, my brother sat bolt upright and walked to the middle of the room asking where's the statue, and we're like what statue, and he's going the statue. The statue. Eventually he makes a motion with his hands like he's picking something up, moves it over about a foot, and then puts this imaginary statue back down. He went right back to sleep again after. My dad and I just looked at each other like oh what the frick just happened, but we got a great laugh out of it. My boyfriend once blurted out you're putting bread in my ears in his sleep, mumbled something unintelligible and then followed up with and I'm becoming a sandwich. Still makes me laugh whenever I remember. I'm the sleep talker. I don't remember any of this, but my boyfriend said I did this to him. In the middle of the night I hit my boyfriend's butt hard with my knee. Obviously he was pretty upset. He sat up to stretch, and I said I'll stretch too. Did stretches, and laid back down. Then, while making full eye contact with him, I grabbed the blanket and threw it off of him, then rolled over and started snoring immediately. Then, while making full eye contact with him, there's so many of these in this thread, it's like the light bulb is on but nobody's home, staring at someone while asleep. Roommate freshman year of college was a sleepwalker sleep talker. We were in the freshman dorms, small little room. I woke up one night and saw him sitting straight up on the side of the bed just staring at me, eyes fully open, just talking gibberish about golf. He was going on about Phil Mickelson or some crap. Have to be honest, it was creepy as all heck because he was staring directly into my eyes. Next morning, I told him about it and he just laughed and said, sorry, I tend to do that from time to time. I'd be the king of Monaco. My wife said this one night out of nowhere. The funniest part was her tone of voice, proud and assertive, like she was really sure of her claim to the throne. Anyway, the joke's on her. Monaco is a principality. Whoa, thanks everyone. I've never had a post or comment get above 10 upvotes before and definitely never had any awards. Husband woke up in the morning and told me about a crazy dream he had. We were hosting a party and he was serving cookies. He was upset that nobody was eating them. When we went downstairs, we discovered a full plate of cookies sitting on our dining table. So he was right. No one was eating his cookies. How rude. We were freshly married and living overseas. My husband hadn't had much sleep the nights before, which usually enhances any sleep talking. It was hot in our room. My husband mumbled something which I didn't quite catch. I asked him to repeat it. He got up, opened the bedroom window and said very pointedly airflow. B then laid back down, completely asleep. Now, my husband has never, not once, ever called me a name or even raised his voice to me, so this is particularly hilarious. I love how you capitalized the word B. I talk in my sleep. My boyfriend said one time I started talking gibberish about snails while staring right at him, waiting for him to answer. When he replied I agree, I patted him on the head and called him a good boy. My boyfriend is bilingual and sometimes I catch him sleep talking in Punjabi. I've never heard him sleep talking in English. He also once punched me in the middle of my spine while fully asleep. When he woke up he claims in his dream he was giving him mum CPR. He sometimes also suffers from night terrors. It happened often when we first started dating. Almost every time he slept or napped. But it hasn't happened for probably over a year. It happened like 2 nights ago where he just started screaming like a banshee in his sleep. It was wild and terrifying. When my girlfriend and I started dating she told me that she's been told she talks in her sleep from time to time, and unfortunately has nightmares fairly often. One of the first nights we spent together she wakes up at 2 AM and sits up super fast. It wakes me up and I look over only to hear her quickly say, "Pizza, order a pizza," then lie back down and start snoring within a minute. God, I love that woman, LMAO. Not my partner, but my mom. She talks and moves a lot during the night. Last week she started running while laying down. Yes, just like dogs do. And also screaming, "Get out of the way, get out of the way." I woke up in the other room to the sound of my dad first wondering what the frick was going on and then laughing his butt off when he was telling me what had just happened. After watching the Lego movie, I really got into the Batman franchise, the comics, the movies, everything. This rather peeved my boyfriend. It peeved him so much in fact that one night, while he was sleeping with his back to me, in a split second he sat bolt upright, turned to me and yelled "Frick Batman" right in my face. He then immediately slumped back down and continued snoring. Don't frick Batman, that's what he wants. My ex-girlfriend woke me up from a dead sleep and says to me, "No trucks please, subcompact cars only please." Upon waking I related this to her and she says to me, "What the frick is a subcompact car?" Funnily enough, the subcompact car is an American classification for cars which is broadly equivalent to the B segment Europe or Super Mini, Great Britain, classifications, and smaller than a usual compact car. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.